Hey guys, hey guys, so welcome to the stream. I don't usually do this kind of thing very often, so I just thought I'd try something a little different today. I hope my streaming setup pulls up. I'm using something very, very basic right now, very cheap and very basic, and also very plastic. So if the phone camera just suddenly falls, you'll have to just bear with me. Alright, so for today's topic, like I mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about strumming technique. I think understanding strumming technique is really important to getting control over how you sound. And I don't just mean doing the downs and ups that are usually required to play songs, because that aspect of strumming is really, I would say, is one of the more basic things to understand when it comes to playing guitar. It's not too difficult to just get into strumming. I mean, strumming itself, in terms of technique, is very simple. You're really just moving your hand down and moving your hand up. The tricky part really is learning the strumming pattern, so that's more of a rhythmic issue. But I would say that most times, because we tend to get the hang of strumming very early on in our playing, we tend to just move on from it and we just leave it there. And we try to go on to the next thing. But it is very much worth it to really spend some study time understanding what strumming is, how we strum and all that. Because that is really where strumming expression comes from, the ability to create dynamics in your playing, excitement, interest, how to build a story through your strumming. It all comes from understanding how to use your right hand. It also comes from understanding the things that you hear. Music is very much a listening activity, just as it is you playing. So the better you get at listening to songs and understanding the dynamics that are going through the songs, the better you get at replicating it. So being able to be expressive in the way that you play comes from technique, yes, which is what we're going to talk about today, but it also comes from the expression it also comes from your ability to understand the things that you hear in the song that you're trying to play. Alright? So, we're talking about technique today. So let's just start with the idea of, where does strumming come from? So it might seem like pretty obvious, comes from your hands. Okay. But which part of your hands? Because your hand is a multi-jointed, kind of multifaceted sort of limb. Okay, so let's just kind of think about it for a second. Now, your hand can move in different ways, a lot of different ways. If we were to isolate this part of the hand, go straight down, we have this joint here, which is what I would call like the shoulder joint, right? And then we have this joint, which is like the elbow, moving your hand. Okay, I'll do more about in terms of guitar. So you have the shoulder, you have the elbow, which can move the forearm like this, right? We could also rotate the hand this way, right? This rotation here. And then we have the wrist. Now the wrist can move in different ways. It can move in a sort of a ball movement. And it can move up and down. You can isolate these movements into up and down, left and right. Okay, so where does strumming come from? Strumming really comes from two places. It comes from the rotation on the wrist, which is this. And it also comes from the elbow moving the entire forearm like this. But it's not necessarily divided equally. Most strumming should come from the rotation of the wrist. Right? It should. I would say that most people start strumming from the elbow moving the arm like this. So you get this sort of wide strumming angle like such. And I think most people, when they think about somebody strumming, they tend to think about somebody doing something like this, which is fine. It's not a bad place to start. But to really gain control of how you sound when you strum, you really want to get into strumming from the rotation of the forearm. Now, if you were to come across lessons online, most people would say strumming from the wrist. Okay, that's fair. I guess it's easy to think of it as strumming from the wrist, but it's really more of a forearm rotation than a wrist, because the wrist itself, if you were to isolate it, is this movement here. And strumming from here would be very, very, very difficult, because strumming is could be very fast and very repetitive, and to just isolate this alone, it's not really where strumming comes from. It comes from the rotation of the forearm, but I have no problem saying strumming from the wrist. But I do mean this movement, the rotation of the forearm. Okay? So let's kind of take a look at those two techniques, strumming from the forearm, the elbow moving the forearm, and then the rotation, and see what are the pros and cons, and how do we put them together. Okay, so strumming from the elbow moving from the forearm, I would say that this gives us a very wide movement naturally, and it also gives us a lot of power. It's very easy to get a lot of volume out of your strums if you were to use the forearm. That's one advantage we have there. It's also very easy to do. Okay, so the first advantage, you get a lot of volume. Right? Easy to hit the strings. The second advantage, I would say that there are many advantages, but the second one is it's very easy to hit all the strings of whatever chord you're playing. If you hit the plain and G, you can easily hit all these strings. If there were 10 strings on the guitar, it's very easy to hit all the 10 strings. Alright? So those are the two advantages. A third one I can think of is if you're into performing and you like to put on a show for people, which is not a bad thing, strumming like this kind of adds to the energy of your movements, right? It's not really a musical thing, it's more of a performance sort of thing, and I'm sure you would have seen people perform, especially like in punk rock. They tend to swing widely because it kind of gives off a certain energy, but it's totally unnecessary to strum like that. Alright, so in terms of disadvantages now, if you were to strum exclusively from the, keep mixing up my terms here, the elbow moving the forearm, well, the first one is we tend to get a harsh sound nearly immediately because our pick is coming down, and generally the pick is going to come at a flat angle coming down the strings, and it's a lot of power, a lot of movement, and very naturally, if you're not used to controlling it, you're going to get a very harsh tone. And usually this is where most students tend to get stuck there, like, why my strumming just sounds so harsh and so, like, they just get fed up with the sound of it after a while. Okay, and that's a lot of the time is because they're strumming exclusively from this movement. Another disadvantage is sometimes when you're strumming, you might want to hit maybe less strings. You might want to hit just the top 3 strings over and over. It's pretty difficult to use this movement and then target strings here, right? This movement is really suited for targeting certain groups of strings because your hand is just moving in one direction, which is down or up. And it's difficult to just use that movement to target strings. Alright? And I would say those are the main disadvantages we have of strumming exclusively from here. Now let's talk about the wrist or rotational strumming. Now I just need to look at my notes. Being on live makes me nervous, so the notes help. Alright, so when it comes to strumming from the rotation of the wrist, we tend to more naturally get a gentler tone. Now why is that? Now if we look at the way that the hand moves, maybe I should use a red pick so you can see through that. right? If you look at the way the hand moves when we rotate, it tends to move in, well, I should point it this way. It tends to move in somewhat of an arc movement, right? If I were to do this, whereas strumming from the, I don't know if I can get that angle, right? So strumming from the elbow will give us a linear, you can see there's a line I'm drawing there. It's going straight up and down, whereas strumming from the rotation of the forearm gives us an arc, all right? Now, that arc is very naturally going to give you a gentler tone because now the pick is approaching at an angle. So it's sort of gliding off at an angle, whereas strumming from the elbow exclusively is like a flat pick trying to break through the resistance of the strings. Right? Whereas when we strum from the rotation of the wrist, right, we get this arc, so the pick naturally comes at an angle to begin with. So the tone is, at least the tone is going to start off in a very gentle way. It's not the only reason we can get a gentle tone, but it is one of the reasons, okay? Another good advantage of strumming from the rotation of the wrist is it becomes easier to target certain strings. So if you wanted to separate like the lower strings of a G from the higher strings of a G, the wrist is really good for that sort of thing, and that is because it gives us this angle of attack to hit the strings from. Right? When we strum from this way, it becomes very easy to target strings. Right? So I'm using the rotation of the hand there. So if I want to target, let's say the bottom 3 strings, right, or the top 3 strings, it's a very narrow movement, but I am using this rotation here. Right? Okay. So those are the 2 main advantages, and of course the third one, I suppose, it's just a lot easier to control because we're using less movement. It's a lot easier to do things like this really fast. So imagine you have water in your hands and you're trying to get rid of the water. It's not very hard to do this and just get rid of the water. However, if you had water in your hands and I tell you, okay, well, don't use this movement, use your elbow to get rid of the water, that's very awkward, no one does that, but you would realize that it takes a lot of energy to do that. So your hands are very suited for moving in small motions if you use your rotation of the forearm. It's just suited for that kind of thing, right? Okay, so in terms of disadvantages, the disadvantage I can think of really is by using this movement exclusively, it is a little bit more difficult to, let's say, strum a wide chords like G and E minor. Right, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch to hit all 6 strings, right, with just the rotation alone. But there are ways to overcome that, and we'll talk about it. Alright? Okay, so strumming should really be, I know I spoke about strumming from the wrist, and I spoke about strumming from the forearm. Strumming should really be a combination of those 2 things, right? And I would say that it should come mostly from the rotation of the wrist and less so from this movement. So I'll explain how it works, okay? A lot of times when I strum the guitar, I'm not really strumming all 6 strings all the time, okay? So most music sounds better if you aim for less strings, okay? So I would say that I tend to use my wrist all the time. Now, with the wrist movement, I can very easily hit like 3 strings or 4 strings. So if I have a strum like this, where I'm hitting low strings, then high strings, low, and then high, what I'm actually doing there is for the first 2 down, yeah, that's just like a wrist movement. But then to hit the high strings, my elbow is moving my hand down so that I can use my wrist again to hit the higher strings. So you see how those 2 work together? This movement here, the elbow moving the forearm, is sort of just positioning my hand so that I can then use this. So this acts as sort of a positional tool, and this is really doing the strum. We should like this. So this is getting my hand into position, and then this is really doing the bulk of the strumming here. So if I'm hitting the low strings, oops, and I want to hit the high strings, look at how my forearm is going to move to relocate my wrist. Right? So keep your eye on this part of my hand. So I'm hitting the low strings. And I'm going to relocate to the higher strings. 3, 4. See how my forearm is moving my wrist? Right? So my wrist is very comfortable. And my forearm is just showing me where. Well, it's just kind of positioning my hand in the chord. So that's really the technique. Another thing that the forearm does is it helps to extend, let's say I wanted a nice big strum, it helps to extend the range of this little movement here. So if I wanted a big strum, I'm really using both of them at the same time. So if you keep your eye on this part of the hand, it's going to move a little bit, right? But I'm still very much using this. So if I were to strum all 6 strings all the time, you can see that my forearm is moving up and down, and I'm still rotating my wrist. Right? It's easy to see the wrist from here, but easy to see the forearm from here, right? Right? So it's a little bit of forearm movement, but way more wrist movement. So those two things really help to, they really help to get your strumming going. All right. So I think at this point, now I just want to take a little second here to talk about something. So at this point, I just want to say something. I've been on YouTube for a while, and I realized that it's fun and everything, but I want to try to really connect with my students, you guys, my online YouTube students, a little bit more. So I've been thinking about starting a Facebook group. I think that's like a really good place to connect with people. Everybody's on Facebook, and I can very easily receive feedback. Responding to comments on Facebook really isn't the best place to get in touch with people and to give them criticisms based on their play. So I thought, starting a Facebook group would be a good idea. Of course, this is a totally new thing, and there's no one in there right now, but I'm trying to encourage people to join. So I just want to put the link in the chat. I just need to find where I put it. So you'll just give me 1 minute. I think this is it. Let me see, hold on. One second. I don't even know if I can put links in the comments, but I'm going to try. Oh, so the basic idea here is you can join the group. Right, okay, so it links. You can join the group, and I'm looking to start a little GP guitar community, I suppose. The idea here is I get to interact with you all, and I get feedback, and feedback from you gives me ideas on what to teach. Sometimes it's hard to think of things to teach. Today's topic is strumming, and I'm also, by the way, open to any other topics you may want me to teach. Just leave a comment down there, and it's just a way to kind of get a little bit more into teaching and to get in touch with you guys. So if you want some feedback on your playing, you can leave videos there, you can leave questions. It's open to anything. Just be respectful, of course, in that Facebook group. All right, like I said, it's just started, so not many members there yet. All right, so let's get back into the technique parts of the video now. I can remember where I put my notes. All right, one second. All right, wrist strumming. Okay, so, right, like I said, strumming should be a combination of wrist, rotation of the wrist, and forearm. So, well, of course, we need to practice that now. So, what can we do to practice that? Some very basic exercises. They might seem kind of boring. If you're already used to strumming, it might seem like you're starting over, but it is very worth it. I think the first and most important thing you can do is try to isolate this movement alone. Because I think most of us are accustomed to moving the forearm when we start. So try to convert any showing pattern that you may know into using this. Now, when you're doing any showing with this, more likely you're not gonna hit all 6 strings comfortably if you're playing bigger chords. So it's fine to just hit like 3 strings or so. Just aim for 3 strings. It will feel comfortable to hit 3, maybe 4 strings. So let's take a strumming pattern that we know already. The one that goes down, down, up, down, up. But let's put the pick in the middle of the strings here, and we're aiming for like 3 or 4 strings, and we want to just strum using this alone, right? Now, if you're in the habit of doing this, you're going to find yourself doing this, and you have to be very aware to tell yourself, okay, stop doing this, just limit it to this alone. Now, what I would say is there's something that may happen to you as well. You might feel like you're turning your hand when you strum. So you get this sort of thing, turn, 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 and you might get that sort of sound. It's kind of crack, crack, crack. You don't want to strum like that, right? The strums should feel like you're taking the pick, you're pulling it back, and you're slapping it against the strings, right? It kind of feels like a slapping motion, at least when you start. You're slapping it so, and slapping it up, slapping it down, slapping it up. Maybe we should start there instead. Because if you're not accustomed, it might feel like you're just turning your hand, and it'll feel like your pick is just digging into the strings constantly, and you don't want that. Alright, so I changed my mind. Let's just do a very basic strum. It's going to be a down, and an up, and a down, and an up. It has to be slow so that we can target the right movement. Okay? So let's just go together. Let's do it on a G. Right? So you're going to keep your eye on your hand. Make sure that you don't use your forearm. And you're just going to rotate your hand down and rotate it up. And the movement should be something of a slapping movement. Okay? Don't let the pick drag at all. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up. Very basic. Might be kind of boring, but very useful technique. And up. When we slap the strings. Slap, slap, and slap the strings. Down and up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? You can do this all day. Once again, the reason why we're going this slow is so we make sure we use the right movement, right? Which is strictly the rotation of the wrist. No forearm, so none of this. Just wrist. Okay. Now, like I said, that is one exercise, and it is worth it to stay right there. Just sit on that exercise, spend a day, spend 2 days, spend 3 days, spend however long you need, right? But of course, once you start to feel like you're getting the hang of it, you kind of want to level up the exercise a little bit. See if you can take on something else, right? So maybe let's do this. Instead of taking such a long pause, 1 and 2, we can try 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. Take a little break, 3, 4, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3. Slap the strings, so you have slap, 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 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're not using this movement here. Down, up, down, up. 1. Also, you don't have to hit all the strings. 3, 4. Down, up, down, up. Just aim for 3 strings or so. 3, 4, down, up, down, Not boring if you really want to learn the technique, but I mean it can be boring. But boring, maybe that's a funny way to use. Boring as in it's very simple, but very, very efficient, right? So really practice it on that exercise. So if you were to level up that exercise, we can just do maybe all Eve notes in the bar. So we have something more like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 with a pause. 2, 3, 4. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just slap the strings. 2, 3, 4. Don't use the forearm. One more. 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's the third exercise. The fourth one, you can just take any strum pattern that you know and do the same thing. So let's use the very popular down, down, up, down, up. And of course, if you are already accustomed to strumming this, you probably want to use, you're probably going to be using whatever technique you're accustomed to, but try to just isolate it to just this alone. Now, remember, we're just practicing using your wrist alone for now, but at some point you do want to include this movement. We're just isolating this to kind of break in the technique a little bit, okay? But eventually we are going to combine the two. So let's use this strumming pattern, down, down, up, down, up. But once again, we're just going to isolate this movement, right? So keep your hand on your forearm, make sure that it doesn't start to go up and down. After 4, 1, 2, 3, let's go down. Go a little slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up. Slap, 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 slap. Slap, 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 down. Wrist alone. Don't use the forearm. We don't have to hit all the strings. Let's aim for 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there are 4 exercises that you can use. Of course, you can use any strum pattern that you know. Take it slow to start with. If you feel that you don't have a technique, it's a good idea to somewhat exaggerate these techniques when they're new to you, because trying to just do it at regular tempo could just be very confusing and frustrating. Okay, now let's just do something here. We're going to start to involve this movement now, right? Because this movement is absolutely useful. I know I've been kind of hating on it a bit, but we need to use the forearm every now and again because it helps us to position the hand, right? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to aim to strum. Sorry, I'm trying to get used to the angle here. The lower strings of the chord, which can be like 6, 5, 4, and then we have the highest strings of the chord, which is like 3, 2, 1. Okay? But we're going to start once again with a very basic example. It's always good to start with basic examples to understand what we're doing, right? So we're going to just do it down, and then we're going to strum the lower strings down. Okay? So you see what I did there? My hand is positioned, let's say in the middle of the 6th, 5th, and 4th strings, and then I have my wrist doing the strumming. It's just one down. It's like a slapping motion. Slap. Oops, sorry. Just slap here. And then my forearm is going to position my hand. It's a short movement. It's not a big movement. It's just to kind of get it a little lower, right? And then we have this next strum. Sorry. Okay. So maybe you're asking how much you need to move your hand. Well, as a visual aid, if I'm trying to strum these three strings here, 6, 5, and 4, I tend to position my pick, let's say, in the middle of it. Right? So if I was to just rest my pick in the middle of it, that's kind of where my hand would be if I'm trying to strum the lower three strings. If I were to try to strum the higher three strings, 1, 2, 3, if you were to imagine the pick is right here, as where my hand is positioned. If I were to rest the pick on the second string, it would now be, my hand would now be somewhat in the middle of the top three strings, strings 1, 2, 3. So that's where my hand would be if I was trying to strum the top three strings. And if I was trying to strum the bottom three strings, you see my pick is centered around the fifth string there. That's kind of where my hand would be, right? It's sort of a guide, a visual guide, but I like to use the pick as to tell you where my hand is positioned, because of course my hand is this big bulky thing, and I mean by itself, even though it's here, it's actually like covering like nearly all the strings on the guitar. So use the pick as a reference point. So now my pick is on the fifth string, my hand is centered around 6, 5, and 4, and if my pick were to be somewhere around the second string, my hand is centered around strings 1, 2, 3, and this movement could very easily strum those strings, right? So if I were to strum the lower strings, higher strings, lower strings, higher strings, lower, higher, down, down. So, but we're just going to do downs for now, because it's just much easier to just start with downs. So let's do this. We're going to strum the low strings, then the high strings, then the low string, then the high, then the low. Right? As simple as that. Trust me, there's a lot of value in simple exercises. All right? So let's go. Let's see how fast do I want to do this. We have down and down. Yeah, we've got that tempo. After 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have down, lower strings. Sorry, these are the lower strings. Let's start again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So low strings, then the high, then the low, high. I'm using the forearm on the wrist here. Right, so I use the rotation of the wrist to strum the strings. Right, so you shouldn't be getting something like this, and then you turn your hand to. Right, that should happen. This is keeping your hand in this position to strum. Right, so that's a very basic exercise that we can do to start with, just aiming for the low strings. We could even try doing downs and ups. So we have something like this. You can take a pause and then you go to the higher strings. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and pause, go up high. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and then the higher strings. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and lower strings. And the higher strings. Alright, so we combine the two motions to do that. If I was to play that full speed, it might sound something like this. Look at my forearm, how it moves to reposition. Sorry, my wrist. Forearm's gonna move. But it's not moving when I'm strumming. It's just acting as a positional tool. Right? It's like a big secret there. So do a lot of practice. You can use any strum that you know as well. If you have, let's say, the down, down, up strum. Of course, you might have to decide on how you're strumming it. You can do like low, low, high, 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 high. Now in this case, the higher strings are coming in on up. So we have low, low, high, 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 right? And the lower strings. And then the forearm moves everything down, and then we continue. Up, down, up, right? And the nice thing about this strum is when we do the first two downs, at second down, we're kind of moving everything down anyway. So it feels like everything just follows through from that second down to help you position your hand one time to do the up, 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 down, up, and it ends on an up. So it feels like you can just use that last up to follow through and move everything up. Alright, so we have down, down, sorry, down, down, up, down, up, low, low, high, 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 low, low, high, 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 low, low, high, 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 high. Do it as slow as you need to. And keep your hand in your hands, because you don't want to use imperfect technique, right? Alright, we have a question. So I'll take the question. So by chuck, I would imagine you mean palm muted strums, right? So I'll explain palm muted, right? So palm muted is a lot easier to get the hang of if you have electric guitar, because you can exaggerate the sound, and with some distortion you'll really hear the difference. On acoustic guitar it's not as easy to hear, but I'll play it for you. So chuck or palm muted strum would sound like this, right? If I was to take my hand off, here it brings out much clearly. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the soft part of my hand, right? Very soft. So that's the pinky side of the hand. Pinky's here, soft part. And I guess you can imagine like you just have your hand here. Now if I'm trying to do it on the 6th string or even the 5th string, I'm just trying to connect that soft part to that part of the strings. I don't have to cover all the strings because I'm not playing all the strings. So I don't have to have my hand like this and then try to do it. It's really just has to cover the strings I want to play. So because of that, my hand could be at something of a diagonal. And if I were to hit the bottom 2 strings, I would get the sound that I'm looking for. Now when you're doing this kind of thing, where you position your hand matters. So your hand can slide away from the bridge and it can slide toward the bridge. If you go away from the bridge, that chuck is going to fade into a click. And it's going to sound more of a kind of percussive thing. But there's something of a sweet spot. Once you get your hand to the very edge, right where the strings connect the bridge, there's something of a sweet spot there. And you can get that sort of woolly sound out of your strum. Right? Of course, it will take, the first part of it is you have to get used to finding it. So, I like to teach things in a way where you have to kind of manage yourself mentally. You would want to just learn the technique. So, day one, you try a technique, you just expect to get it. No, the first step is you want to get used to finding the sweet spot. So, if you think you found it, take your hand off because you found it, and then see if you can find it. See how long it takes you to find it again. Where is it? Where is it? Right, somewhere around here, right? Okay, you got it. Take your hand off and try to get back. Don't just leave your hand on and keep doing it, because, like I said, step one is to find it. So practice finding it. Take it off. You want to put the guitar down, because sometimes touching the guitar gives you a lot of reference points and remember everything. Put it down somewhere, pick it back up, see if you can find it again, right? Right? Maybe even you take a break. And then once you've got it, then you can just practice it. The actual movement. So in this case, now this is an interesting question, because what I was teaching just now was strumming from the wrist. Well, people like to call this the wrist, but this is really rotation of the forearm. And then in comparison with strumming from the elbow. Right? Now when you lock your hand here to strum with palm muting, this is the one time you're actually strumming from the wrist, because now you're actually engaging this movement here. Right? So technically, this is strumming from the wrist. But everything I was talking about before was strumming either from the rotation of the wrist and this movement. But this is actually strumming from the wrist here, because the hand is actually locked onto the guitar, and we're now just using this movement here. Yeah, definitely having a teacher will always help. Somebody who knows how to do it and you can see it. It's also just way more inspiring to have an in-person class, to feel like you want to just get the thing. So I would say, yeah, I mean, you could be taught this in maybe one class. If you have a teacher in the area, you can just ask them, here, I want to learn how to do this technique, can you teach it to me? It would be great if that teacher has electric guitar with distortion because, like I said, you can really hear the difference way more on an electric guitar than with an acoustic, especially if you're now starting. You may not be sure what the sound is, right? But the sound is much more easy to identify on a guitar. Yeah, well, okay, so you can add it to different strumming patterns. Like so the track you're talking about is really a dynamic, right? It's more so done. Now it's what I consider to be like a low dynamic. If I were to do a down strum like this, that's like a low energy. I can hit. If I were to chuck, it's just really a replacing. Let's say they have really high. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Da, 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 da. And now I want people to sing along. Happy birthday to you. Da, 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 So think of it like a tool. It's a dynamic. You're creating a low energy strum and you're creating a mood when you do it. Of course, there are different ways to use it. You can blend it in with a regular strum. And that creates a dynamic within it. Okay? So it's I like to think of it as what is the effect you're going for first. If you think of it from the point of, well, what kind of effect do I want to create? Do I want to just make a very... Well, I want to kind of... I don't know what to describe that mood as, but it's a kind of like something is about to happen kind of mood. Well, then maybe you might show everything like that. Is it? Thanks for telling me because, you know, I'm not sure if anyone would have said that. But well... I'm not accustomed to streaming. I just wanted to, yeah, sorry. What I'll do, I'll look back at the video at the end. And then maybe next time, hopefully I'll get it better. But I really don't have a streaming setup. I just thought that I would start, see how I feel about it, and then maybe get something that is better, maybe a mic. My computer is like it just slows down like really badly. So I'm not sure if I could use my computer. I would test it out later and see. And if I can use the computer to do it next time, I have a mic and everything, and it should greatly improve the quality. But this is, to me, at least to me, this is like a test stream, you know. I want to know exactly things like that. I'm really glad that you said that. If it's, you know, good enough to do, because right now I'm just using my phone on a tripod, and of course the phone is a little far away. I'm on a Wi-Fi, wireless, so all these factors kind of make it. I kind of knew that it wouldn't be like the best quality, but your feedback is appreciated, and then the guys in the background talking loud, all these things. But as time goes on, if I continue, well, I plan to continue the streams, I will make little adjustments to improve. So appreciate your feedback on that. But I hope you at least understood the things that I was saying, right? If not, you can join the Facebook group, and we can talk later there. That's the best place that you can go to actually communicate with me. It's a new thing that I'm starting, so if you go in there and you see nobody else there, don't be scared. I'm now starting it, but I will be there, and you can ask me all the questions, and I can send you an actual video where everything should be a lot clearer to hear. You know, as much as I can. I'm trying something new. So, if you have any other questions, you can feel free to ask me. But I think I have a video lesson on, well, I call it palm-muted strumming. I'm going to use you with chucking because it sounds like a chuck. But I have a video lesson on that, I think. Do I? I'm not sure. I know I have a video lesson in the course that I have, but I don't know if I have a video lesson on it on my channel. I realize I don't do a lot of I don't do a lot of general lessons. I do more songs. Somehow I feel I don't. Yeah, no, I don't. I'll do a lesson on it soon. It's a very common question to get. So let me just see if I can wrap up the rest of this technique. So I was, if you just came in, I was talking about the use of the rotation of the forearm combined with the movement, the L moving the entire forearm to control the way that you strum, because you want to be able to control the way that you strum to create certain effects, certain dynamics. If you want to hit less strings, those are the parts of the hand that I'm using. I'm not just using this to, right? Most times when I hear that, I can very easily tell, okay, that person is kind of now learning to play guitar because it sounds very even. But sometimes very harsh. I can hear that they're strumming all the strings all the time. It kind of makes you want to bounce with it. Sometimes you want that effect, like maybe like a. Sometimes that effect is wanted, but a lot of times, nah. You create dynamics by separating strings. You hear that kind of doom doom ba, doom doom ba. All music has that, even if it's not a guitar playing. Everything has those types of dynamics. So. I think, to be honest, I think we covered the main idea that I wanted to talk about today. What you want to do is you really want to combine those techniques. And the way to do that, the first thing to do is really just try to isolate the wrist, the rotation of the wrist first. Because that's the one that people tend not to use when they now start. So try to just strum by using this. You don't even need to hit the chord, you can just mute the strings like this. And just do this over and over. Let me see if I get the angle here. Yeah. So it should feel like a slapping motion. Imagine you're slapping the strings. Right? And make sure that this isn't going up and down. It might be hard to not use this, but try that. Just focus on this. Once you get the hang of this, it becomes easier to combine the two. You don't have to practice doing this because this is more of a natural movement than this. Just try to zone in on this. You can use any instrument pattern that you know. Just try to start slowly first. And a lot of fast strumming really comes from that movement as well. It's a lot harder to strum quickly if you're just using this part of the hand. Yeah, so I think that's more or less what I wanted to cover today. This live streaming thing is different. I'm not accustomed to doing it, and it makes me nervous. And my mouth gets dry because I feel like I'm just rambling, trying to just fill the space. But I think I'll just pause for now. If you all have any questions, you can leave it down in the chat, and I'll try to answer it. But I'm looking to wrap up here, so feel free if you want me to do a lesson on a song or something. Leave it down there. You can leave it anywhere on the channel. Any comment that you leave on the channel, I'll be able to find it because YouTube leaves notifications. Oh yeah, boy. And now seeing the quality of this stream is pretty bad. Like damn. I'm looking like blocks. I'll have to find a way to fix that, but I don't think I have anything to sort that out yet. I have no control over the internet. I'm just using the tenant next door. I'm just using his Wi-Fi. So I don't know what people do to stabilize their stream. I probably have to plug my laptop straight into the router. So well, if there are no questions, or if you have a question, you can leave it in the Facebook group, and I'll be sure to answer it as soon as I can. But thanks for Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully, well, it takes a bit of guts to put myself out here like this. I would like to do this regularly. I would say that the goal would be once a week. I don't know if I would do it on YouTube once a week, maybe once a month. I really plan to do it more often in the Facebook group, but Facebook group is new, so I can't keep it there just yet. So maybe I'll do another one next week, but if I do decide to do it, I will put out a notice either here or on Facebook. Not on Facebook, on YouTube. I'll put a notice out on YouTube. Okay. So that's it. Thanks for joining into the stream. And I'll see you all later. Bye. Oh, it's on the phone. I need to press the button on the phone.